this is a wee initiative we Club Down started to try and break the boredom or the monotony of what we thought was going to be 4 or 5 weeks, and we're now at month 4.5. So you're very welcome. As we said there, we've experienced difficult times. Paddy and Niall, you are in the education sector, and I'm sure, well, you talked about being near 50, Paddy. Niall's not quite there, but this is the first time.
Away, Ross.
This is probably the first time ever you've experienced anything like this in the education sector. Has there been a lot of confusion, Paddy? Now, I know, Niall, you're post-primary, and Paddy, you're at third level, but there has to be similarities in ways you would maybe prepare for terms or you know, a younger age coming through.
I was at a third level, so the objective of third level for students is to get out with their degree or get out with their results. That's ultimately what they want at that level of education, is to come out with a chosen degree. And we had to make sure that the students that were finishing off this year, well, in their final year of studies, you know, were able to achieve what they set out to do. That did pose a few challenges for us from middle of March onwards. We still have students who were in schools on teaching practice, and that had to be wrapped up a little earlier than normal. We then had students get ready for examinations, get that finished. So everything was done online. Assessment was done online, and really we haven't been back on campus since that date. I think it was the 15th of March. We were told to take our computers home with us and set up an office and do all your teaching online. So as regarding where we're going in September, we're not entirely sure yet. We talked about a hybrid model at third level, where there was hopefully some on campus and some online. So a student that may have been maybe working 50% of their stuff in the classroom and the other 50% online. So that's what we're looking at. I think the model in schools might be slightly different, or in some schools are talking about something similar. So we're entirely up in the air at the minute too. And now I do think that we should know within the next few weeks what our definite is. But I would imagine it'll be along those lines of a hybrid model of on campus and online.
Yeah, Niall, it seems to be. Did you find something similar?
Well, yeah, we found something similar, Ross. Like, it seems to be in our school now this year, but I think every school is different. What we are going to be doing is, say, for example, the first maybe to year 10s, year 8 to year 10s, only half the class is going to be in 1 week and half the class in the other week. Now, in St. Louis, we have up on about 700, but the school, you know, is a very old school, and it's the corridors and stuff will be quite tight. So I would feel that's all we could really take, you know, in terms of social distancing and stuff. Now, in terms of the online learning, I suppose a lot of the PE teacher work was done by Joe Wicks in the mornings, you know, with the body coach and stuff like that. But, you know, so really what I was doing was just going on and putting up, you know, sort of weekly workouts for the kids, and probably some were using it, maybe some weren't, but I didn't want to put them under too much pressure, you know, to do written work and stuff, because obviously with their parents maybe at home and working parents, it was difficult, and it was probably more beneficial for them to try and, you know, maybe work on subjects like, you know, their science, their maths and English and stuff like that. But it's definitely been a really strange and challenging time for everyone, and even the stay-at-home dads, as probably Mark and stuff would know as well. It's been difficult too.
Yeah, and Darren, like, apart from a couple of days at the start where there was just complete uncertainty, you have been able to continue to work, and even apart from being out, you've had a wee job at home to finish. How's the new house coming along?
Yeah, it's coming on well there at the minute. Tyler's finished, kitchen's going in Monday. So kitchen and bathroom suites are in next week, like, so hopefully the next 2 weeks we'll fit to move in, I would say. Like.
Good stuff.
But yeah, when the whole thing came in, like, I was sort of panicking at that stage, like,
yeah,
going to have my work, and then like we were just in the middle of building the house and thought it was maybe going to come to a standstill, but lucky enough the whole thing kept going, and sort of COVID sort of helped me and Paula with the house. Like, I got a big push on it, like, and I was lucky enough. I got a private house, my cousin's private house, during the whole thing, and was fit to do it. So
good stuff.
We were actually fortunate enough I didn't miss too many days over the whole thing, and at the minute things are very busy. Like, what the new year brings, it's people don't really know. There's a lot of talk going about that maybe it will be a bit of a recession next year in R3, but nobody really knows. I suppose that'll all depend what way the banks and stuff go. They keep lending money, they shut up doors, and it'll have a big effect on it.
And has Paula been able to find the time to make all the necessary purchases?
Oh yes, I tell you, when things just changed and bought and left back and bought. It's a disaster.
The stock didn't, the cattle and the sheep didn't stop. They didn't know it was lockdowns.
No,
You had to keep at them too.
I kept it them. They kept me busy enough too, so they did. Unfortunately.
Good man, good man. Mark, you're a coach with the county. It's bound to have been a very strange time for you. And how did it impact, your job? And as a result of that, were you glad to get spent more time with Emer and the boys?
Yeah, Ross, it was. I think that's the big thing we've taken out from it. That we had Emer was actually in maternity leave. She just went back to work there a couple of weeks ago. So we had time together that we probably would never have had. But at the same time, it was quite worrying as well, because once it all started to talk around the schools, were probably the first thing to go, really, and it just knocks you completely out of routine. But I was lucky enough, I'm sort of in the same position as Darren at the minute, that we're building down at home. So
are you back on the tools?
No, well, I have a builder in doing it, but no, I was down and, trying to plan ahead so that we could get as much done before the builders and that shut down, so that, trying to get materials and that ordered so that there would be no delays, because like Darren saying there about the tiles, like a lot of the tiles are coming from Spain and these places, and the shipping, you just didn't know what was going on. So, I think in terms of the coaching too, like the Ulster GAA have been brilliant in terms of running out different things every Friday and Monday, and I was trying to tune into as many seminars online as possible, and just always just trying to take wee pieces from them, so it wasn't as if you just sort of stopped doing that. First couple of weeks we had a couple of tasks to do for Conor O'Toole and that there with the other members of staff and that, so hopefully we'll be able to pick back that there once where we get back going again. But in terms of the schools, nobody knows. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
I think just what you mentioned there about taking materials in from, abroad, that's the ripple effect that this has had. It really knows no bounds at the minute. Another, or maybe it isn't a coincidence, Mark, but this virus has arrived at the same time as Liverpool won their first premiership. I'm sure that brought a smile to your face.
I would lie if I would say it was panic stations, it really was, especially after being at Anfield when we beat United. I thought that was capping the whole thing, and then things just went pear-shaped. And there was a few mornings, there was every morning for a couple of months I was checking Twitter to see what I learned quickly not to be reading and listening to everything that was being spouted about, just not in football terms, about the whole COVID thing too. So tried to remain as positive as we could, and just thankful for them first two games after the restart. They could null and void it all they want after that.
Yeah, in fairness now, they've joined those great clubs like Blackburn and Leicester as winning one of them. I've known DJ Kane for over 40 years, and never in any moment in that time did he ever mention soccer or talk about soccer. And the first day, do you remember the day, was it Chelsea beat City? Was that the day that it meant that Liverpool won? This boy comes on the phone with text messages saying, "Did you watch any of the football? Isn't it great?" And that a closet Liverpool supporter, so it has affected everybody. Anyway, I suppose what I really wanted to talk about was the GAA season. And in Down, we have a format, as you know, where we have a 5-game league programme, 3 of which will be played up until, I think, this weekend. And then there's a break for the Division 1 and Division 2 clubs. And then they go into a championship. And that championship is the same format as previous years, where all the teams play, the 16 teams play. Then I think the losers play off, and it continues. So everybody gets at least 2 games. As a result of that, then the leagues kick in again for I think the first 2 weekends in October. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then straight away, the county season, I think, starts, Paddy, about the middle of October. But
that's right. Yeah.
You are allowed to take players back from the 14th of September.
That's it. Yeah.
Mark, I'll maybe begin with you, because you've been the mainstay for the Down team for the last 10 or 15 years. And how has the change back to full time with the club been? And during that time, have you had any sense of frustration of the club footballer since your return?
No, not really, Ross. For me, getting back to the club was it was strange in a way. Obviously living in Uri, the travel down the road 2-3 times a week, it just sort of caught up on me, and luckily Shorty understood that, especially a player at my age. So I was only maybe down once a week and then going to the matches. Mm-hmm. At no time did I feel frustrated at the county game or anything was holding the club players back. I think we're very lucky in Down that we get football every Friday night, and start games as an ex-county player, it has to happen at certain times, and you have to play without your county men. I'm probably speaking from Longstone in terms of it doesn't really make any difference to us because we've only got one player currently at the minute, but never ever was there a sense of frustration that the county game disrupted us in any way. And it was a good release. Getting back to the club football, I'd say at stage of my career, I think a lot more of it was to do with the younger players within our club that just needed a wee bit of guidance and that there. And Ambrose was always there too, but it took a bit of load off him, because we had an awful lot of young players coming through. And I suppose being back in Division 2, it's tough. It's in Division 1, I would say you probably get to play football a wee bit more. Division 2, we were going to places that we hadn't been to before, and it was a real dogfight. And mm-hmm. Our younger lads, probably found that as a shock to the system as such, But I suppose it's great being back with the club and trying to guide those young lads on, and hopefully they'll get the stone back into the first division sooner rather than later.
Good. And Niall, given that we're only back a few weeks, have you seen the benefit or any benefit of having exclusivity to all your players at this time?
Oh, well, I think I have, Ross, because I suppose, we started back collectively. I think it was on the 24th of June. That was the date that the GA said we could go back. Now, the boys were working away, on their wee pods of 6 and then 10s just up to that date. So, having your county players available to you, has been very beneficial because in my eyes, the county players within a club team, should be the ones that are pushing it on, should be the ones that are, improving the standards. And, we're very lucky there that we have at the minute Paddy and Cormac, and they do that. And up to recently with Ryan, but he just stepped away, as Paddy knows, there just for personal reasons. But if you look at it from our point of view, we have had 4 weeks to work with the fellas in terms of coming up to league football. It maybe hasn't showed with the results to date, and we'll have 7 weeks before the championship. And if you look at the 3 boys who were in the county panel, that would be our full back line. So to have those boys at training with us all the time now, we can work a wee bit more in defensive shape, maybe on short kickouts or whatever that may be, and setups and stuff like that. So there's no doubt it is beneficial to have your club play or your county players with the club a lot more. But as Mark was saying, I don't think it's had too much of an adverse effect in Down, because the matches continue on a Friday night, and they have done the last X number of years. But obviously you are missing your club play or your county players in your training sessions, which can maybe have an adverse effect to a certain degree.
Yeah, and it's over 3 months since you probably finished the initial pre-season. Did the return to play with the short sort of timeline for the run-in to the games, did it present any challenges in terms of intensity or injuries, or even a focus to return immediately?
Oh, it definitely did. But what I would say, Ross, to be brutally honest, I would say probably of the 15 players that started for us last year in the championship final, I'll not name the 3 who didn't maybe come back in the best of shape, but 12 of them did. And I would say that reason being, they're all young fellas. They're fellas at university. Did nothing else to really do during lockdown. The bars were closed. The fast food outlets weren't open. So they come back, to be brutally honest, in really, really good shape. They were maybe training 2 or 3 times a day, and a lot of the fellas would have been doing a mixture of running and body weight activities. And what I would have noticed was maybe in the past you had some of the lads that were in the gym maybe lifting heavy weights and they maybe bulked themselves out too much. And don't get me wrong, if strength and conditioning is used right, then it can be very, very beneficial. But if it's not, then it can't be. And as I say, the boys have come back very, very lean and in fantastic shape. But as you know, general fitness is one thing, match fitness is completely different. So we're trying to, you know, get that sort of mixture right where we're not pushing the boys too hard and having fellas breaking down, because ultimately what you want here over the next 6 to 8 weeks is, I suppose, the 15-20 players that realistically club teams are going to be looking at, you know, to push on and win a championship, to have them, you know, healthy and fit, going on and trying to progress. But it has had its, you know, implications as well, because you only have 3 matches obviously to get a team geared up for a championship. So effectively at the minute, Warrenpoint of a squad, there are 40 players, so it's difficult, I suppose, to keep everyone happy, because you can't give people a game time, because, you know, this year with that short turnaround, you're effectively only in the league games going to be using maybe 22, 23 players. But the good thing is that there has been seconds matches on the Saturday after the Friday night games, you know.
Yeah. And Darren, you're in the situation where you're captain of the county team and also of the club team here in Clonduff. Does that present a challenge, or do you think it may present a challenge if hopefully Clonduff are at the business end of the league season, which is the end of September, early October, and Paddy and the colleagues are back from the 14th of September with a very short window to prepare for 2 incredibly important National League games and then a championship match?
I don't think it does, because I think credit has to go to the county board, the way they've scheduled it. Like, all being well, we are at the business end of the season, and the final is scheduled for the 20th of September. Like, so that's only 6 days after Paddy can get his hands on a lot of the boys. Like, so yes, whatever 2 teams are in the final, you probably will get a couple of days leeway after that there, but it still gives you plenty of time to get back into the down setup to prepare for the, as you say, the last 2 important league games. Like, so I don't think it is, and I think the county board have really, really done well the way they've scheduled it to give the club player a good bit of football and an appropriate amount of time, and also to look at the county side as well and give them a good bit of time to prepare for the 2 league games as well. And
given that, I'm right in saying that there isn't any promotion or relegation with the league games. The 2 games that are scheduled for October, there won't be a great emphasis, I would presume, on the clubs to use county players for those. Will they be star, do you think, Paddy?
We're already starred.
As far as I know, they are star games, Ross.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is probably the first time in 20 odd years, Paddy, that you actually haven't done any coaching during the summer months. Have you found it a challenge to stay busy, or have you, because when I spoke to you earlier in the week, you were having a break with the kids, you know, the family down south. Did you find it relaxing?
Well, the first few, we were working right up until the start of July. With college work, so once you get that out of the way, then really we're a bit of downtime. To be honest with you, Ross, I sort of switched off the football at that stage, because I felt that I really had to take a break from it, because there's nothing really to be gained by bogging yourself down in analysis or looking at things or examining things or thinking too far ahead, knowing that we're not going to get back playing until mid-October. So really it had to focus on switching off the football and turning on my golf game, and trying to bring his handicap down.
Good man.
Which is which I'm finding very challenging at the moment. But
you put your head away with that sort of analysis.
Oh man, that sort of analysis is awful. And you watch Deshambra there, and you think, "I'm going to go out and do it tomorrow." You go home a cripple. No, I had to switch off the football because I have to realise, and this is one thing I make it very clear, is that I agree with Darren said. I think Down GA and County Board have handled this extremely well. They were one of the first counties to come out and sort of, this is our plan. The plan was very well received among the clubs, and it left with a great opportunity for clubs to get back up and go and get a decent league and the format of the championship, where you're used to not having to change the club championship format, which has been working successfully for a number of years now. You mentioned the fact you play matches on the Fridays. It's a wonderful thing in Down. It's unique to your county, and it means then that the players can play Fridays with the clubs and have the seconds games happen on Saturdays, which is great. And it always was the way back, and for us, go back to your time as manager, that Sundays were for the county. And that was always a great thing, I felt, because in Tyrone here, all club football happens at 2:15, 3:45 on a Sunday afternoon. And that's just the religion it is. It's just the way it is set in Tyrone. So it means then that really it's a different type of way of doing things. And I always found that especially keeping young boys engaged and young players engaged, Friday night games are brilliant, because, you know, at the end of the week, give you a game, you still have a social life at the weekend, you have other things you want to do, which is important for any young person. And I think it's not a bad thing to have on a Friday night. I think the way the way the county board indicated how they do things and made the big steps hard. So this is beating St. Paulie's team this year, Longstone, about not having promotion. I'm sure it's something they really wanted to go for. Yeah. But I think in the year we're learning at the minute, with clubs been having to withdraw from matches because of maybe a player test positive for COVID in the area. Around the matches have been put back, and if this continues to happen, it's happening down a few clubs, it's happening to Tyrone clubs, it's happening around about. So I think there's a bit of flexibility among the clubs this year, as they're not forced to play games and the pressure doesn't come on where there's an automatic relegation. Unfortunately, there's no promotion if you do win the league, but I think it worked pretty well. But as regarding myself, I had to put a lot of faith in the leg of Niall here and the club managers that to get on with it. I'm a big believer that, you know, there's good club managers in Down, there's good club coaches, there's good clubs, good trainers. Let them at it. Do your job as well as you possibly can. I still have plenty of time for my players when the time comes. I know it's only a short window. We're looking at three weeks of preparation before a league match with your entire squad, possibly 4 weeks with most of the squad. So you take away the last week, which is a taper down week, you're probably looking at 2.5, 3 weeks of training to get ready for those league matches. So the onus will be on us when we hit the ground by that time, is that the players do come back in good shape, and then we can get our hands on them for a fortnight, 3 weeks, to really get them ready for that important match against Leitrim. So there is a bit of work to be done there, but to be honest with you, I've had to put the faith in the players to look after themselves and the clubs to do the right thing, and all being well. But because really, what other way is there here? Like, you know, you don't want to get into this is a definitely a thing that I think it's going to cause consternation within counties, between clubs and county setups, if this became a to and fro or a tug of war between players and within the clubs, which I think would have no benefit to anybody here, especially the players. So I trust the players and the clubs to do their job.
Yeah, I think personally Down have done it well, and I've been amazed and disappointed with some of the comments coming from, you know, officials maybe in Croke Park, or I see Paul Flynn wanted, now he's chairperson of the GPA, and he was looking to have those county players that maybe are out of their respective championships to be able to rejoin a county panel before the 14th of September. And on the flip side of that, you've had some officials asking clubs to report their county if they go back to training before that date. Holy God, so that would cause anarchy. You couldn't have clubs squealing on a player. It'd be like Clonduffer or Longstone, you know, saying that Mark and Darren, or Connor and Darren, have gone back to county training, and if there's going to be punishments and penalties, then they're under suspension. That would be madness. Do you think the regulations from Croke Park have been fair, or are there changes you feel that could have been made?
I think that statement about players, or, you know, clubs reporting county players, I think that was a terrible statement from Croke Park. I think that's against the ethos of what everything doing here, and I think that to ask clubs to do that against their players would be Yeah, it was awful, and I think it's an obligation of responsibility from the pro part to expect clubs to do that. So I think that's completely wrong. I do feel there's merit in what Paul, the GPA, did require. And I remember at the very start when this discussion was happening, if there would have been a possibility that county players who have exited the club championship, let's say some of the club championships actually are finishing off, in different counties are finishing off, that could be out this weekend. Players could be finished now, which is around the start of July. And they have to wait then until the middle of
6
September
weeks.
before, sorry, start of August, and wait 6 weeks before they go back into county. So I did propose that at the start that their insurance for players should be brought a little earlier to allow them to get back into county training. And if that happened that during county training, that you could that they would be insured for injuries. I think that the player lobby for the CPA had a big say in this here. I'm sure the Club Player Association is a big push there to make sure that didn't happen. And I think maybe even goes back to John Horn's first statement at the very start, talked about that there will, there'll be no football, and all of a sudden if it's going to be football, it'll be club football first and then county. So the line is drawn pretty early on from Croke Park point of view. And to be honest with you boys, I completely agree with what's went on here. I think it's the right thing that the clubs have to have access to players. Like we had 3 months for the players up until that time in March. The clubs haven't seen their players at all this year until now. So it's only right that the clubs have a good run at this year. And all been well when this is finished that we get the players back in again. But I do feel that allowing the players come in a little early, just cover the insurance. If it hadn't happened to a player, wouldn't do any harm. I don't think it would be wouldn't have been a big deal. But now it's become a big deal, and it's definitely not going to happen. So
yeah. Niall, do you feel that the GA that our season could exist if you had a club season, an exclusive club season followed by an exclusive county season going forward, or is there just not enough time in the year, in the calendar year?
It would need to be sort of sat down and looked at maybe, in more detail, Ross, but I think it possibly could, because last year we started off, as most teams do, say in the middle of January, and we finished off in the middle of October, and that's 10 months for, a club player. And there's an awful lot of club players. That's a serious amount of commitment that they have to give. And, I would stand up and I would speak to them at the start of each year, and I would always tell them there's 3 facets in their life. They've obviously got their family as number one, they've got their work, their study, and then they've got their football. But if you don't have the balance right in either one, then it's going to suffer. So I personally, I just do feel at the minute the 10-month season, within club football is very long. Now, I remember, I suppose, even way back when you would have been playing, Ross, and Dad was taking us with Castlewell, and we would have had a good team which got the a league final and championship final and stuff like that there. But most teams now are doing 12, 13 weeks pre-season. Premiership teams don't do that. So at that stage, with us with Castlewell, we actually done 6 weeks of pre-season. And while it was quite intense, we done Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the reason we done that was boys didn't have to come up the road from Belfast, during the week on 2 or 3 occasions. So while, as I said, it was intense, maybe on a Friday night, you would have done a circuit or a recovery session on a Saturday, and then maybe football on the Sunday. So I think club could first and foremost look at maybe, cutting down their pre-season, and then, up until this year, we've been talking in the past to Paul McGaver. He would have said in Down, the league season in Down is a marathon season, where when you had the 12-team leagues, you literally had 22 league games, and then you were going in, you were playing your championship and stuff as well. So I do feel that the club season definitely could be condensed maybe into 6 or 7 months, instead of having it as currently as it is with most teams, the 10 months at the minute,
Yeah. Mark, you and Emer now have a young family. Has the pressure changed much in the last 20 years on club players? And have the attitudes, or maybe that's not exactly fair, has maybe perhaps priorities changed in that time since you started with Longstone to now?
Hi, it's huge. Like, I think just society itself today, you would know better than anybody what Longstone's senior teams were like 20 years ago, and from being in changing rooms with those characters, that was the way we were brought up through, but that's just not the way it is now. And I just think there's so much more to life too, the way travel and all those different things that people do nowadays. And you know, you see so many people even leaving county setups and that there to go and travel and do things like that. Would never have been, never had entered my head, you know, when I was playing county football. Like, but look, as you get older and, as I say, children come into your life, like my priorities have changed now over this last couple of years. There's no doubt about it. Like, but it's still that release when you get the training and the crack you have in that there, and there's still no better buzz coming home on a Friday night, you know, after winning a game, like whether you're playing one or two that we are now, like that buzz is still there. Like, and I suppose when you get onto the field, that their drive's still there too, and I wish it would go away, like, but it's as bad as ever, and especially when the legs don't
still
move
as bad tempered then when you're a bit.
And the legs just don't move as fast as they used to either, so that there's through into the mix as well. But
well, let me tell you, boy, that's like the hair that comes to you too. That's the devastating moment when you're trying to go for a ball and it's not going to happen.
I know what that feels like. Just let me tell you.
Darren, back when Paddy's not that awful much younger than me, but back when we were playing, most teams, Paddy, even county teams, had 7, 8, 9 players who were tradesmen. And Darren, I think maybe apart from yourself and Connor, Mark's brother Connor, and maybe Connor Harrison, you're the only tradesmen on the panel. And that actually workload of 10, 12 hours a day, is that, on a side, is that possible to continue with in the future on the demands of county football?
I think it's not, no. The reason I think so is because I think players are in better shape nowadays. They're fitter, they're faster, and I think it's more demanding on their body now. The county and even the club scene now is getting up to that level too, like, where, like as Niall said, it's going on 10 months now, like it's going on a long period, like, and it's demanding for a club player now as much as it is for a county player. So I think going to county level, you will see the tradesmen sort of edging out of it. Like, it will be demanding on the bodies, like, even as you say, sometimes there's a lot of tradesmen away 12, 13-hour days, and then coming home to try and slog your guts out for maybe an hour and a half on the pitch 3 or 4 times a week. Like, I don't think bodies will stick it, like. So, like, I know mine isn't anyway at the minute, like.
Paddy, young Jack McCaffrey from Dublin recently announced that he was taking a time out from county football, and as Niall alluded to earlier, Ryan has done the same for their own reasons. Do you think that lockdown will have given some players, some younger players, probably a time to think about just maybe resetting their lives, and is this commitment for me? Am I going to get the rewards out of it that I once hoped for? And if winning's only about lifting a piece of silverware, then that question must be in the heads of a lot of young fellas.
Yeah, I say it has, Ross. I think that the lockdown would have suppose a lot of people would have examined various facets of their lives, whether it's work or family commitments, and certainly sport, and the GA won't be insulated from that either. Like, Darren, talk about the tradesmen, you know, the players that, if you look back to the days we played, you mentioned back in the sort of if you're thinking of the 80s and the 90s, Ross, and that time, half our teams were made up of boys that were on the tools every day, and those are the boys that you take into the trenches with you every day when you go into a match. You know, those are the ones you wanted more than anybody else at times. And I was in Derry for a few years, working on the Derry team about 4 or 5 years or whatever it was, and half the team were still in the tools. Patsy Bradley's and boys like that were still working every day, and then coming in, and Darren's no different. He comes in there to work, and I know Darren works hard on the site, and then has to come into his training sessions. But I think the key is that I think the key is as managers and coaches, we got to be aware of that, and we have to ensure trainings aren't too demanding, and we have to allow a little leeway for players that are that are taking, and that's just not even physical toil. Some of the boys are under serious mental toil where the jobs are doing. They might do a physical, but mentally they can be very drained as well. They can be sitting in a very high pressure office situation where there's a lad I coached a few years ago, was a trader in the stock market in Dublin, and sat from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 when the market's closed, sitting with 5 screens in front of him, making trades of millions and millions of dollars and pounds. And if he missed a trade, somebody could lose 100 million on a trade. So that's the pressure he was under. He couldn't make a miss. He couldn't make it. So when he had to leave his office, he had to switch off that and go and train for county football. So now he wasn't doing anything physical exhaustion, but you can imagine the mental strain in that lad. So there's a completely opposite things. There's all lads that are doing. We have two or three of our players that are doing medical and degrees on the squad at the minute. And understand if you're doing a medicine degree, it's a very demanding course. It's a lot doing account. Various whatever degree qualifications they're doing, there's a pressure, academic pressure as well. So there's all, everybody's got their own demands, and that's not even taking on personal life and family life and financial issues as well. So I think as a modern day manager, whether it's in a club or a county setup, you have to be very, very aware that every player is individual, and you have to tailor your training and tailor your preparation as best as possible. Because ultimately, the key is to get the best out of each one of your players and to make sure that your best players are available when you go onto the pitch and available and playing well. So there's sometimes you give boys reduced load. You'll tell training sessions, you'll ask them not to train that particular night simply because you feel it's the right thing to do at the time. So I think we got to be aware of that. But you know, the one thing, and Niall mentioned a minute ago, is that boys now do look after themselves pretty well, Ross. Like, you know, it used to be that the 12 weeks of pre-season was to get rid of the 12 weeks of drinking and eating over Christmas from you know. So there was November. No, there's remember the National League before Christmas and after Christmas, and you had 3 matches pre-Christmas, which were like a tour of Ireland.
Yeah.
You know, where you went for the crack, and then you had 2 or 3 matches after Christmas to get ready for the championship in May. So like, you know, it was a different time nowadays, and I see the lads nowadays coming into training and body fat's down at between 8 and 10% for most of the players. You know, you might have the odd exception like Darren, they might carry 12 or 13%, but that's just because we know that he needs that bit extra.
That's his age too. Yeah.
That's the age thing as well. That's it. Yeah. Metabolism slows down when you go over 30.
So Marcus said.
So like, you know, I think the in general terms is you got to be smart about how you deal with each one of the players. I think that's the most important thing. But there is certainly a place for a split season. I advocate this for a long time, that there should be a split season between club and county. What comes first? If the club season was first followed by a county, for a county manager, you could be watching your players right through the club season, and you'd be picking your players in form going into the county season, which would be ideal, which would be a very good thing as well. So it's not to say that the county has to come first, followed by the club. I think it could be a club season first, and then look at what's going on there, use that time to assess what's going on. But you also have to have access to a squad during part of that, at least at a small level, to assemble a squad for getting ready for a county season. If it was a county season first, there's no reason why it couldn't be wrapped up by June and completely finished by June, and then have a club season kicking in for the next 4 or 5 months, and everybody having an off season, or at least when it go to third level football in October, November, December, there's a third level season, which I think the boys really enjoy playing, or schools footballs enjoy playing, and under 20. I think there's definitely something could be done to alleviate the crossover and the pressure on players.
Yeah, and just with that same level of commitment, Niall, given the commitment or the role now it takes to coach even a club team and all of the stuff that goes along with that, do you think the layoff has given fellas like yourself time to say, I'm not putting up with this shit anymore, I'm going to walk away from it or take a time out or that, or will there be always that gra and enthusiasm to stay involved?
Oh, don't get me wrong, as a couple of the boys alluded to Mark, you know, I've a young family myself. I've got 2 young boys, 1 3s and 1's 1. So where I'm living at the minute, Ross, is just off the Sprucefield roundabout. So I would leave in the morning at 7:30 and maybe not back to 10:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we would do some Sunday mornings as well. Like, so there's a massive commitment, but it's not only, I suppose, a commitment for myself. I make myself maybe stand out like being a martyr here, but it's worse obviously for Gillian being at home and difficult for them. But no, listen, there's always that you want to get back at it. You know, when the football wasn't there, as Paddy said, I definitely took a step back from it, and I enjoyed my time at home. I really did, and I got to spend some really good quality time with the family. But I am happy to be back now, and I suppose, you know, looking forward now, you know, to the upcoming championship and seeing what way that will go. And, you know, I feeling down this year that it's going to be a very competitive championship, probably because, you know, a lot of teams haven't got maybe into their stride yet. I know the likes of Clonduff and stuff are going well there at the minute and maybe carried off, but a lot of the teams have only, as I say, got the 3 games to prepare. So I feel this year that possibly the so-called weaker teams will put it up to maybe the better teams, especially in the earlier rounds of the championship, with that lack of preparation. And I suppose from Paddy's point of view there, you know, he's going to have some really competitive games in the championship where he can look and assess the form of his players. If you look at it last year, you know, who went on to win Ulster, were very unlucky, I suppose, not to win the All-Ireland final. And, you know, Clonduff really put it up to them. Rostrevor put it up to them. Burn probably should have beat them in the replay, and Warrenpoint were very close in the final as well. So there's an awful lot of teams in Down that I feel are going to be pushing on this year, you know, to win that championship. So, you know, I'm glad to be back involved and stuff like that. And I suppose it's just one of those things that's in the blood, and it's hard to walk away, you know, when you do become involved in it, you know.
Yeah. And Mark, as we said at the start, you're one of the county coaches, and you're involved. Are you still involved with it's now the under-17s?
Yeah.
Do you still enjoy it, Mark?
I love it, Ross. I really do. I would probably go as far as saying now that I'm far more enjoyment in the coaching side of things than the playing side of things. And we got 1 game played in the league there, and it was just an exceptional bunch of young lads this year, you know. So really hoping and praying that, you know, them lads get the chance to represent their county at under 17, you know, because there's a lot of them in that group who have bright futures. And I suppose it's a learning curve for myself as well, in under James last year as well, and just sort of standing back, and like, there's no comparison between playing and managing. Like, you probably don't respect that when you're a player, what managers have to go through. And it was just brilliant there last year, and seeing and being involved in a setup, and again this year, and personally just trying to do that wee bit more this year. And I suppose at this stage, this is the bigger picture for me. I want to go down that route, but I also want them young lads to know what it feels like to wear a Down jersey, and I want them to we've an opportunity now that I think the under-17 games are actually going to be played before the senior games. And like, we had that chance with them last year before I think it was the Armagh game in Uri.
That's right, a couple of years ago.
We got that when we were minors, and you know, that's all we ever wanted to do was play before the seniors, and that was taken away from the under-17s this past couple of years. So yes, there's a delay in the competition happening, but at the end of the day now, they're getting to play before the senior team in Brewster Park in October. So again, like the seniors, we're not allowed to, you know, no access until September, but yeah, it's great for them, like, and really, really enjoying that role now, I have to say.
Well, you're speaking there with, you know, with a great enthusiasm for it. Do you feel, Mark, and I suppose it will depend on family circumstances as well, because as Niall and Paddy both know, the commitment is huge, but has it whetted the appetite to continue a career in coaching and maybe, you know, step up to taking a team at senior level, not maybe just at county level, but at club level as well?
Yeah, like I think, Ross, moving back to the Stone, and this is where like people are saying you're going to play on, and one of the big things I want to do when I go back to the Stone is get stuck into the Longstone underage sort of structures and things like that there, and take a team down there. I've took the under-21s this past 2 years and really enjoyed it, you know, but I want to go down sort of hopefully under 14, 16, you know, young lads who are maybe 5-6 years away from playing senior football, and still something that we had instilled in us whenever we were that age. But I actually got a few phone calls last year from different clubs, just more or less. I think they were testing the water, and I just thought that just being with the minors again, it was far too much commitment, like, and that probably would have put an end to the playing days, and I didn't really want that either. And Killian's 3 now and coming 4, and he knows what it's like on a Friday now, you know, that before this here, he loved nothing more than getting into the car with me and coming down to the home matches and standing with mummy and daddy along the side and getting on the field after the game. And you know, he's more of a Connor fan than a Daddy fan. Couldn't get over or doesn't understand that Daddy actually played for Down as well, you know. So but no, it definitely does whet the appetite. And like, as I say, that's one of the reasons being involved with the development squads and the under-17s this year. Like, I want to learn as much as I can, you know, over these next couple of years. And if a club team or whatever comes on board, I would definitely give it serious consideration. So
good man. On a lighter note, I'm not too sure if you're aware of this weekend at all, but it's actually 10 years to the weekend that you scored that great goal against Kerry in the All-Ireland quarterfinal in 2010. And without wanting to isolate you, Niall, Darren, Paddy, and Mark were part of that incredible journey that we all enjoyed. You and I, Niall, and everybody else enjoyed. Have you still got vivid memories, Mark? Like that, it must have been. There's not too many people in our county can say that they scored a goal in championship football against Kerry and Croke Park. And I know during the summer, during lockdown, probably the best goal I ever saw scored by a Down player, you scored it against Armagh. Do you remember maybe 4 or 5 years ago? It had a few reruns over social media anyway during the lockdown, but that goal 10 years ago must sit very, very vividly in your memory as well.
It probably does now, you know, over lockdown. I think a lot of things like that were played back, but funny you should say that. I was just down at the house today and I've actually 2 Clonduff men are trimming it out for me, you know, and they've been there for a week and you could feel that they wanted to talk about football, and this last day or two I've got plenty out of them. And he actually asked me that question today too, and I says, look, the way I looked at it that day was I was getting to play in Croke Park for the very first time, and that's what I dreamed of as a child. And look, I actually watched the game back there over lockdown, and I think the thing that struck me more was the work rate that day. Like the amount of turnovers our forwards won alone was more pleasing than scoring that goal, because that's what you're preaching to the younger people you're talking to now or coaching at the minute, you know. And look, Paul played a dodgy ball in between me and a Kerry defender, and like as I say, it was the first time in Croke Park. There was no way I was pulling out of it, and once I saw the path open up, there was only one thing in my head. Like other days, they hit the corner flag, like, so it was a head down and hope for the best. So, look, it probably got us motoring that day. And I was actually down in Kerry a couple of years ago on an old 4 years, Tom Spillane. I walked into a cafe and there was a crew of them sitting around, and he actually followed me out of the cafe and sort of grabbed me by the back of the neck for it. So, it's nice looking back on them too. Like, you know, the Kerry ones don't forget.
No. I know it was Dan, you were maybe 19 or 20 then, and you were part of the panel, obviously. What were your memories of that year? It must have been an absolutely incredible journey to come on as a you know, in your first year and experience that whole journey around the country, and finally with the destination of Croke Park on that third Sunday.
Yeah, it was quite incredible. Like, we were under 21s that year, and we got a serious hammering by Cavan in the championship. And I always remember Stephen Brannigan said to me, "Oh, Brian McGyver and Jerome was there watching us, and you're thinking about you're going to get called in." Stephen was working with Jerome. I said, "Not a chance after that hammering." But then we played Bourne in the field in a league game, and I had a missed call from James. He brought me into the panel then on a trial basis, and luckily enough, then he phoned me a couple of weeks later and asked me to join the squad. Then I just thought, you know, you were there making up numbers, and then we played Donegal that year in Ulster, and I got my debut, and then Tyrone as well, and then I got my start in the first round of the qualifiers. started a couple of games, and then I lost my place to Daniel. Then he came back from injury. I sort of had a nightmare against Offaly too. So I did down in
Didn't help.
Tullamore. No, definitely didn't.
But all been there.
Yeah, it was an incredible first year. Like, you know, you thought this was going to be your down year every year. Like, you know, getting to All Ireland finals, getting to play Croke Park, but that slowly went away. Like, but it probably is the reason why I'm still playing and why I'm so dedicated is because that bunch of players. You know, I seen what they done that year and where they got to. Like, so like it was good to be involved, and it's always good to look up to them boys, and they did set high standards. Like,
good. And Paddy, I suppose Darren sort of referred to, he thought what was the start of his career might have continued, but over the past 7 or 8 years, we've seen dominance by Dublin. Do you feel this is is it a good thing? Is it a level playing field? There's finance, playing numbers, infrastructure support, as in, you know, the backup that they need, nutrition or strength and conditioning, logistics, personal support, jobs, vehicles, health and wellness, etc. Will a county without the above support will they be ever able to get back to a top level again?
Yeah, they will. I think that Dublin are on a crest of wave at the moment. And for this last 5 years, like, but you know, every team has its day, Ross, and we know this was cyclical at the time. If we go back to the great Kerry teams that went through their 4 in a row and 3 in a row, and times when we thought they'd never be beaten in the 80s and 90s, and you know, these things evolve and change. So I think Dublin just have a with all that you mentioned, I think they still have an exceptional bunch of players that have all come through at this particular time. But I do think that'll change in time as well. I can't see the dominance lasting forever. I'm a big believer that if you have that players well, really, really well on any given day, and if you go back to that 2010 team, Ross, you were worked with the vast majority of those players for the 2 or 3 years prior, and you knew the quality of the players in that team. And I remember when you asked me to get involved in that squad, you made it very clear to me that there was the reason you asked me involved, you felt there was something in the team. You think there's something going to happen. It didn't happen in 2009, but certainly in 2010 when that team got on a momentum and got a bit of the crucial moment in that game was in that year actually happened in Tullamore when Aidan scored the goal just after half time against Offaly. We actually went to the wrong pitch. We were heading from Mullingar. Do you believe
on one of our earlier video calls, this came up with Ambrose and Brandy McVeigh, and I don't know why you saw it, Mark, but I laughed for about 10 minutes with the two boys. Was the bus driver or somebody near?
I remember.
We're going to Cusack Park and
Westmeath or somewhere.
We're heading in the road, and I remember sitting there going, "Geez, this is a long way to Tullamore." I have a cousin who lives in Tullamore, and if I go to his place, I don't go past that turn off that junction. And then I said to Brian McCaver, and I said, "Brian, I have a notion this boy's missed this turn." But the thing is, when you miss that turn, you don't get a chance for not 20 mile. Like, and Brian at this stage was starting to get white. So I think you went up to the front of the bus to give your man, "Where the fuck are you going?" Pardon my French. And the next south is Derry accent. At this stage, we couldn't tell the boys in the back of the bus because we were thinking, well, if we tell these boys, we'll panic them. But I think a few of the players had caught on. We missed the turn for Tullamore. And I remembered, you remember too, lads, we were actually coming, it was like, tog out there, boys, in the bus. You know the under 14s, when you're left for a game, boys, you get togged out there. But this was literally jumping off the bus, togged out with the bags over the shoulders. And I think we had, as far as I know, we had 25 minutes in the change room before we headed out. And that stage, and we never actually played until half time. I think our first half performance, and maybe Darren, we can put you bait yourself up with that first half. Or the down team that day was very poor in the first half. But after half time, Aidan scored a goal, such an important goal in that match, and it swung momentum back to us, and we were able to drag out the result. But it was kicked our season. Once we beat Offaly that day, we come up the road and we knew we had a great escape. But the Kerry game then, and Kerry, and you got to catch them cold. And if you catch a Kerry team in that Ireland final, are notoriously hard to beat. You can catch them in a semi-final or a quarter-final when maybe they're not expecting it. That's happened. We did in 2003 with Tyrone in the semi-final. We caught Kerry cold. They didn't expect that to happen. And I felt in 2010, if we catch these boys, we hit this team with intensity in the first half, they'll not be expecting it. It was a wet day in Croke Park, I remember. It was lashing rain. The ball was slippy. The ground was slippy. It wasn't Kerry's day. They really wanted to go out and play against a team that were obviously hungry, like Down. And Down that first half were immense. And then Mark's goal was one of the reasons in our way, but it was a super performance. And I think probably the confidence the lads got out of that bit of a run, and it meant that you're sitting in the Ireland final. But if you go back to your question in a roundabout way, I do think that that team was well prepared in 2010. It was well prepared. It was very, very close. That a team that's in club championship, whether it's in county championship, or whether it's in university football, or no matter what it is, if you prepare really, really well, you have a chance. Not to say you're guaranteed to win it, but you have a really good chance provided you do everything right.
And just on that then, Niall, the challenge for everybody in Down is to break the stranglehold and the dominance of Kilcoo. Is this achievable? And if so, who are the best teams to try and do that?
I think it definitely is achievable, Ross. As I spoke about earlier last year, there was 3 or 4 teams that pushed Kilcoo to the pen of their collar, you know what I mean, in a lot of games. But you got to hand it to Kilcoo. I said to them when I went into them after they beat us in the championship final, they won their first league title. I think they actually beat us, Castlewell, in 2003, and then they won their first championship in around 2009, and they're still going strong. So they have an unbelievable amount of experience built up in that team, and their resilience and their game management stuff is at a higher level probably than the other teams in Down. But I definitely think that it is achievable for someone to beat Kilcoo this year. In terms of naming teams, I suppose I did name a few, earlier on, and that would be the likes of the teams you'd be probably looking at, likes of your Hill Towns, the likes of Burn, possibly, of Mayobridge, perform to their standard as well, and just depending on Warrenpoint and if they get up and going, you know what I mean, in the championship as well. We've a very difficult match against Bourne in the first round. I don't think Warrenpoint have beaten Bourne maybe in 40 years in championship football, so that's going to be a very difficult game. But whoever probably wins that game, the momentum that's going to bring to you, going into the next round, and with it being such a short space of time, that team will be on a very good thing, because as Paddy knows there, I suppose playing Sigerson football, it's a very short time frame. It's a very short time frame this year, so it's only 6 weeks. So if you do get a bit of momentum behind you, for any team, I think you're going to be difficult to beat. I
think with a short season, it definitely is. If you have a panel of players that can stay free of injury, and you do get a bit of momentum, the confidence that goes through a squad it's phenomenal, and it's really it's a potent mix.
It is, and I suppose another team I didn't mention there, Ross, and they're only up this year into the first division, and if they had a full league season, I think they would have been very hard to beat, and I still think they'll be hard to beat, and that's Carried Off, who Darren and Clonduff play in the first round. I haven't seen an awful lot about them. I only watched them last year when they played Castlewell in the championship, and I was very impressed when they're very fit, very strong, very athletic, and have pace about the team. So I don't know an awful lot about them, but what I've seen that day, I think they're a team that is going to take beating in the championship as well.
Yeah, they're a team that I would actually be a wee bit afraid of. As Darren well knows, they give us an awful trimming for 30 minutes last year. Probably Clonduff's experience told in the end, but that'll stand to them this year. And they've had a couple of decent results to date, when the league's recommenced. So we definitely know what's coming down the line here. Mark, you're in the final few, as we've discussed, in the final few years of a wonderful career, and the addition of the kids probably has given you a whole new perspective on things. Apart from getting Longstone back into Division 1, are there any goals left or any boxes left to be ticked?
Yeah, I would love to give the championship a rattle this year. I know people are probably thinking, Jesus, he's ambitious there, but I feel that Longstone have a mix of young players coming through that can give out anybody a game. And as Niall said, that this year with the uncertainty over, preparation and teams not having that volume of games that they would have had any other year, I think anybody can catch anybody in any given day. Plus, we're meeting a team that we lay down to last year again this year. So there should be a drive there. There should be a niche to get one over them again. I would have loved to have seen a straight knockout championship this year, just to really set the cat amongst the pigeons, like to see what way that would have went with, as I say, the uncertainty over things. But yeah, I want to get the body right first of all, and I want our lads to give the championship a good rattle this year, because we've a young coach in who's come in and done work with our younger lads early on that they probably wouldn't have done before. And our first 2 league games now, I've seen a maturity about the team that
very good
wasn't there last year, let's say. So look, we can prepare for our last or bye game this week, and then with 2 weeks to the championship. So look, we're hopefully they continue on doing what they're doing. But I would love to get one more good run. Our club are sort of celebrating their 75th anniversary this year, and we had Big Amber's tournament last year.
Yeah. And
it probably really reignited probably a flame that had, sort of been out within me this last couple of years, but it's just reinforced what our club means to our small community. And as I say, it's probably one last push for myself, so just really looking to give it a push and get another big day out. We got to quarter final last year, but we didn't perform against Warrenpoint at all. We didn't do ourselves justice. So I think that's one thing that I would just like another bite of the cherry at, because coming off the field that day, I thought that was it. So yeah, just give it one more push before.
Okay, well, I'll leave the last word with you, Paddy. And as we said earlier, you were part of the group in 2010. You were a really important part of the Tyrone breakthrough in 2003. You have championed St Mary's for the last 1,000 years. And I mean this really respectfully, to punch what is perceived to be way above your weight with far bigger universities throughout the country. Is the same skill set that you had in 2003 as a coach stroke manager, has it changed a lot to now, or are there more things that you have to deal with players, or even just the workload?
There is, yeah. I think when you step up into county management, it's a different ballgame, from working as a county coach. Is great. You can do your job, you train the team, and you work behind the scenes, and that's your job, and it's grand. And really, you're part of a management team. When you want to be the manager, the buck stops with you. That's where the final decision has to be made, whether it's on team selection, whether it's on what goes on in the training pitch, what's happening behind the scenes. You're directing not only a football team, but you're also directing a team of coaches and medical staff and whatever you have to do. So there's a fair bit more work to be done on it, but it still goes back to this. It really goes back to the players. No matter what this thing is about, it's about the players. And I think that the common denominator in any team that has been successful of playing and want to play, and our friends, generally our friends within the group, it's so important. It's a very simplistic look at things. But the best teams that you find are generally the teams that are close as friends, not just on the pitch, but off the field as well, that have the healthy respect for each other. I look forward to going watching Down club matches, especially championship games, because the players will cut lumps out of each other, and you'll see them back in County Trim the following week, and they'll be grand, and they'll bully up and they get on with it, like, and that's what it should be. Like, it's very highly competitive in the club system setup, but it's also very good in county setup. You got to do your job as a manager. You can't be backing off and take responsibility for it. If something doesn't work out, I can't look to somebody else and blame it. I have to make sure that's my decision. So I think there's a fair bit of work on that. But ultimately, if you want to be successful as a county, you have to have good players in your clubs. Your clubs have to continue to develop in the players. The like of Mark and Ambrose and Benny and the lads now that are working at underage and at underage level with the development squads coming through is so important. Not only the experience they have as players, but they're also bringing through an ethos and a culture of Down football that's not lost in anybody that's involved in Down football. That night over in Ross in the Canal Court this year, it was an absolute pleasure to bear that. It's just nice to get you realise the importance of Down. The county team, and I don't know too many counties that would show that level of honour to the county team that they do in Down. It's so held so highly. We're now at in Tyrone. We got our All-Ireland 2000s, and that's fantastic, and that'll keep us. That's given Tyrone a really good lift. But I don't think ever even Tyrone will ever be looked upon the same way that the Down teams of the 90s and the 60s have been looked upon. There's something very special about that within the county. Something that can't be lost. And I just say that at a county level, I'm in a very privileged position at the moment that I'm honoured to be the manager of the Down team, and try and mould this bunch of players at the moment that'll be competitive and grow a team that'll challenge for Ulster titles and All-Ireland titles in the future. But it's early stages. We're still in that developmental phase, and we need the support of the clubs to continue it on. We need the development to happen through the underage structures. But I do feel that there's progress being made. There's a great attitude among the players that are there, and there's a few players too that maybe haven't got the crack at it yet, but they'll not be forgotten and not be missed when the club championship comes along. If they're playing really well, the opportunity may arise for them. So I'm really looking forward to that time coming around, and I'm looking forward to watching the clubs now for the next wee while, and then getting back at it in September.
Good man. Well, man, I've taken up enough of your time. Niall, many thanks. The very, very best of luck with everything this year. You're
Thanks, Ross.
just from having stood on the sideline just down from you in an opposite dugout, a serious time for the way you coach, and it's great to watch the teams. And given that half of my blood is from Warrenpoint, I hope you do really, really well, and the very best luck, and wherever your career takes you. I hope at some stage you get involved with Down teams. Mark, the best of luck. I hope the kids keep you fit and healthy, and I guarantee you that
the bags under my eyes or no?
Yeah, well, I guarantee you there'll come a time where you'll be volunteering to go for training, just to get out of the house. Good luck with the house, and to you too, Darren. And I suppose, Paddy, for everybody, if Down get promoted, we get to an Ulster final, and with the help of God, that momentum will take us to an All-Ireland quarter-final, then it'll be a wonderful Christmas for everybody. But fellas, thanks a million.
Ross.
Take care.
Thanks,
and look after yourselves.